Folks, as you all are well aware, the bombing campaign of Rafah has continued now for a week, and this is just one of the most depressing and just devastating stories that I've seen for humanity in a very long time. And not necessarily that it's happening, because we know human beings are capable of man-made horrors beyond our comprehension. That's not news to anyone. But in seeing the defense of this action by millions of my fellow Americans, by people whom I've known for years and called friends, and assumed to be, good, just, and moral people with a normal moral compass. It is wild to see them defending the fact that the IDF has spent what, 4 months now, 5 months, telling the
Mm,
people of Gaza to evacuate their homes, 24-hour notice, by the way, and flee south, because we're going to destroy everything in your neighborhood and your community. Good luck coming back to that, and hoarding everyone into a tiny strip of land that packs 1.5 million people. That's your safe zone.
yeah.
That's where you're going to be okay. Only to turn around and say, "Oh, actually, just kidding. You need to leave there too. Keep fleeing further south." And in case you're unaware, there is nowhere further south in Gaza to flee than
Mm,
Rafah. That is the last refuge of anyone who's seeking shelter from this attack from the IDF. Uh, with the basic implication that say, "Hey, beg Egypt to let you in, and then we're not going to
right.
let you back, so we can, take control of all of Gaza all on our own. And if you don't leave, we will kill you." I don't know if you guys all saw that video of that. It was like a 12-year-old child. I can't remember if it was a boy or a girl, but the
Mm,
child was just blown out of a building and hanging from a wall, like
I
a
seen
like
it.
with no legs. It was just terrible. And the
Yeah.
insistence, the absolute insistence from the Israeli government saying, "Well, we need a complete surrender of Hamas before we stop," whatever the hell that means. And Netanyahu even came out and said, "I don't care if they return all the hostages. That's not going to be enough. We're
Mm,
still going to go for it." There's just no defending this at all, yet people still find a way to do so. Like, well,
yeah.
what have you seen, Hugo? What do you see run across that?
Here, so it started during the Super Bowl, right? That was, and I find that really interesting because they it was clearly sort of like an intentional quick while everybody's not looking. While all the Western people are not looking, we're focused on the Super Bowl. Quick, let's begin this bombing campaign now. And it's so interesting that it happened at the exact same time in which um, a foreign country, Israel, was spent $7 million on
seven
an
million
ad
dollars.
for the United States Super Bowl. It goes into how like nefarious and also how like mechanical and methodical the like intentional genocide of Gaza and of the Palestinians is in regards to like the way Israel is planning it out, because it's 100% everything they've done at the every step of the way has been propaganda, then punishment, then propaganda, then punishment, then propaganda, then punishment. And I think that has a lot to do with why a lot of people are still sort of in this weird like denial stage of thinking that this is some sort of war or some sort of like conflict where equal sides have like both sides have an equal chance of winning. Is because I've never seen a country do better propaganda than Israel ever in my life. Like not once have I seen. And the thing is, I wouldn't even necessarily call it good propaganda because it's super duper easy to see through. It's like first grade level, but what it is it's definitely a volume over like it's a volume over quality situation where they just pump out as many different propaganda pieces as possible on social media, on Twitter, celebrities, so on and so forth. And that really is what is like forcing, like that's what really is getting a lot of the people to believe in what they're saying, is the fact that like everywhere you look, I mean, the amount of money they're spending simply on marketing for a genocide is something I've never seen before. Because throughout history, when a country does a genocide, at the very least they like try to keep quiet about it. Like I haven't seen any,
Badge of honor
I don't remember any
genocide.
instance.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah, like proudly proclaiming like this is what we're doing. And it's so funny to see the juxtaposition between what Israeli officials will say and what the propaganda machine will say, because those are two completely different things. The Israeli Twitter accounts will be like, we're not, we don't want to hurt any civilians. We just want our hostages back. And then you'll see like Netanyahu be like, no, they're all dirty rats, and they all need to go. Like, I find that incredibly morbid, that they can, as political officials, like, know they have the ability to say literally whatever they want about this, because their propaganda is working overtime to like muddy the water. And this is sort of like the Rafah situation, to me, especially in regards to Israeli propaganda, brings up a really interesting conversation about Zionism, in that Zionism as an ideology, and especially with the people that support it, they know for a fact they don't have the means to argue on any ethical or moral
No,
grounds. They know
none
for a fact.
whatsoever. Zero.
Yeah, they know that. They fully understand that. I've never seen a Zionist argue like it convincingly, or even like convince themselves that Israelis deserve to be there, or that I've never seen a Zionist argue that it's okay for the taking of Palestinian land. October 7th is literally the only thing they're saying at this point. Like, it's the only argument any Zionists possibly have. Well, they murdered 1,400 Israelis, the largest genocide or largest attack on Jewish people since Holocaust history. And now that's the only, and that's how you know that it was 100% like an intentional, especially in regards to the Israel knowing, like, this was an intentional list. You could see with their responses, with Netanyahu's response, with the Minister of War's response to what happened on October 7th, you could see that they were waiting for this opportunity for literally decades. They were like, this is the time where, because they're only using that as an argument. Like, they're only using the October 7th massacre to justify what's been going on.
Yeah, it would. The propaganda would be somewhat more convincing if it wasn't identical to what the Israeli government has been saying for 70 years now. Like, there's no difference. Like, it didn't matter. It's just like, oh, October 7th, we're
Yeah.
gonna just reuse the same shit we've always used. And you're talking about how effective the propaganda has been because it's quantity over quality is a fantastic point, because we've all been just deluged
Yeah.
with this message, since birth. And I mean, in fact,
Yeah.
if you would have asked me about the Israel Palestine situation like 8 or 10 years ago, I would have had the Zionist point of view, because that's all I heard my entire
Agreed.
life. And the tides are
Completely
shifting
agree.
now, but it is fortunate that I've seen a lot more Americans speak out against this,
Yeah.
but the older you are, the less likely you are to change your mind on it, and the older people are the ones who vote. That's the
Right.
unfortunate reality of life, because people
Yeah.
wonder why Biden and the Democrats as a whole are
Yeah.
hearing these oppositions like every time. Joe Biden's got to resign himself to the fact that every time he makes a speech from now until November, he will be interrupted by, uh,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Palestinian, and he's still doing it anyway. He's still gonna do it.
Yeah.
And the thing is, he's not afraid of them. Like, if he was afraid of them, he would, stop. But he's not, because he doesn't think it's
Right.
gonna hurt him. Because once again, a lot younger people feel really passionate about it, but younger people don't make up the bulk of the voting population. Now, the Super Bowl thing's interesting, because I've had some time to think about this, as long as everybody else, I guess. But
Yeah.
I think about this. But that's like, everyone's like, okay, well, they did it during the Super Bowl to distract people. That's almost certainly true, especially when you consider the fact that they made an ad during the Super Bowl. But I wonder how necessary it even was. Because
Right.
say they
Right.
did that bombing 3 days after the Super Bowl. Would it have been any
Yeah.
different? I don't think it would. I
No.
mean, I just don't think, maybe a few
No.
more people would have been upset, but I just
Yeah.
I just don't know. And what I read at Biden ups. Oh my God, so Biden again. Where you were talking about uh, how Netanyahu is just this
Mask
insane.
off. Like, his mask, just the quiet part out loud, like, just completely, like, he says what he means. Like, he says what he means in regards to the people of
It's
Palestine.
it's it's crazy how off the rails he's gotten. He's so insane that like a lot of Israelis are like, "Whoa, buddy, what the fuck?" Like, when you're
Yeah.
hearing the reports coming out, you're
Yeah.
like, "Wow." And it reminds me of like in the complete opposite direction. I remember listen something about George Harrison from the Beatles, and George Harrison was like a big
Yeah.
spiritualist, whatever, and he was kicked out of a commune for being too much of a hippie. That's what it reminds me of, like with Netanyahu. It's like, yo, buddy,
Yeah.
you're way too
Yeah.
much into the Zionism thing. But the thing that's really frustrating is that people talk about, well, they criticize Biden, and all these reports keep coming out. I don't know if you've seen these, but they drive me insane. Where they'll say
Mm.
behind closed doors, Joe Biden is talking really bad
Oh
about
yeah.
Netanyahu. Have you seen this shit? It's like he's calling
Yeah,
him
a
an
lot.
asshole, saying he's going too far. Who gives a fuck? But like, who cares? That
Literally.
what? Why? Why is that message even being
Yeah.
put out there? I don't understand it.
And the thing is, for me, I think it's obviously it's a PR thing, and this is why, like to your point about sort of where you said about how it wouldn't really matter that much if it happened 3 days earlier, 3 days prior. It's bigger than, and why Biden like does not care and he'll just keep on talking, because it's one of those issues, and I talked about this a lot extensively with my friend who's in the military. It's one of those issues that is bigger than any president. Like it is a bipartisan situation that
Mhm.
has like sort of since Israel has been around, it has always been American policy to be explicitly and aggressively pro-Israel
Yes.
for like a lot of different reasons. And that's something that not any single president like would be willing to go against. Like that's a policy that no, because it doesn't. I don't even think it comes from the president. I don't even think that idea of Israel, like explicit pro Zionist support, comes from Israel. To me, it sounds like it comes from the CIA and the intelligence forces around the U.S. And so, like, it's bigger than the U.S. presidents, and this is why the Biden probably personally is probably pro-Zionist, but even if he wasn't personally, he would still have to be for the presidency. And this is why the best they can do within the White House is just like, I don't know, give us like empty platitudes of like, yeah, Biden's telling him like, be careful, dude. Where you see how good of a president he's being, he's telling him like, dude, relax. You know what I mean? Like that's the best they can do because they can't get any less. They can't like be any less supportive of Israel. Like just as far as American policy goes.
Yeah, your message is bad when even the CIA can't come up with like a convincing argument or something. Like that's your only job, is intelligence and shit. And it's like, hey,
Yeah.
just like leak news to the New York Times that you're calling Netanyahu a doo-doo head. It's like, really? You think that's gonna win? That's the part that gets me. It's just
Yeah.
like no one could possibly think that this is meaningful in any sense. And yeah,
Right.
that's a good point about how it's bigger than the presidency. Because I was just thinking of it is that the United States can put a dent in this by just simply halting the funding, but it is
Right.
bigger than that because not only is it strategically important for the United States military to have an ally like Israel in the
In
Middle
that area.
East,
Right.
but it's also good for intelligence. And the Russians support the Israelis a lot too, which no one ever talks about. Like the Russians are also
Right.
big supporters of the Israelis, and so
Yeah, they
and
are.
even like Sue's relations with us in Russia. But this, I just
Mhm.
here's my guess of what's going to happen. They're going to continue, their massacre in southern Gaza. No one's going to stop them.
Yeah.
Hundreds of thousands of Palestinians are going to be either killed or displaced outside of the Gaza Strip, never to return to their homes. And 30 years from now, everyone's going to say, wow, look how big this tragedy was. This was so sad. Why didn't we do something at the time? Just like we do with everything else, like we did with South Africa, like we did with Nazi Germany. And
Yeah.
it's just, like we
Yeah.
did with 9/11. Honestly, like the
Yeah.
9/11 parallels are shocking to me because
Mhm.
like October 7 and 9/11, where they say, well,
Yeah.
look what we're doing in Iraq and look what we're doing in
Right.
Afghanistan and look how we've, destabilized the Middle East, Syria, and all this. And for a good 15 years, everybody said, well, 9/11, like, what'd you expect? Like,
Who the
that's
fuck
going to happen.
cares?
And it's
Right.
the exact same shit
Right.
happening now in Israel.
Yeah, and this is the thing when talking about Israel and the Palestine conflict, because it gets so fucking depressing, dude, because like on an intellectual level, you realize like nothing is gonna happen, dude. Like, and
Nothing.
that's such a heavy fucking thing to talk about. That's a heavy realization to have that you and me are sitting here having this conversation about how abhorrent what is going on is, and there's literally nothing we can do. And absolutely, to your point, you are 100% right. There will be a time, 20, 30, 40 years, when later generations will look back upon this moment and they'll try to pretend, a lot of people will pretend that they were against it,
Yep.
and they will pretend that, what I'm saying, I was. And this is why I saw a tweet recently that said, like, calling for a ceasefire now, like in regards to celebrities, calling for a ceasefire now is cowardly. Like, it means nothing anymore. The celebrities that were calling for a ceasefire in November and October and November and December, when this was the beginning,
Hmm.
when it seemed like everyone in the world was explicitly pro-Palestine or pro-Israel, and it seemed like everybody wanted revenge on Gaza. The few celebrities that called for a ceasefire and called this for what it was at the time, though, that was bravery. Now, after 30,000 dead, half of those being children, I can't even imagine how many how many babies who hadn't even reached a year old being wiped away instantly. Now you're seeing a lot of celebrities, a lot of whom signed the letter thanking Biden, um, for what he was doing in Israel as immediately as it happened. A lot of them are now calling for a ceasefire, and to me, that screams nothing other than cowardly. Because it's cool that they're calling for a ceasefire; it still is a material good, but like those of us that were paying attention, remember. And to your point about the history being rewritten, that is all this ceasefire talk now is doing, is giving these people an outlet to be like, in the future, to be like, well, I was against it eventually. And to me, that's really fucked up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and once again, like going to the parallels from the War on Terror, the exact same thing happened. If you go back and like so, well, you might know this because you're big into media and film and everything, but I think it was an
Yeah.
Oscars presentation or maybe a Golden Globes presentation, and Michael Moore won an award. Maybe it was for Bowling for I can't remember. You know what I'm talking about? Where he went
Yeah.
up there
Yeah.
talking
Yeah.
about, "Hey, the Iraq War is back." Booed off the fucking
He was
stage.
booed. I'm talking bullied out of the fucking stage, man.
Tomatoes were
Like,
thrown at this guy. I mean, it was just like for sorry, go ahead.
no, no, the fucking patriotism, and like you said, I am big into media and films, and I talk about this all the time, and I was actually planning on making a fucking video or even like a video essay about this. The media landscape after 9/11 changed entirely. I mean, like, it was never the same, never ever the same. So many different films, TV shows depicting so many things about American patriotism and so many things like that, like, sprouted after 9/11. People don't realize just how much it changed the film industry and it changed the media landscape. And to your point, it was like a rise in aggressive patriotism. Like, do you remember, I don't know if it was a senator or a congresswoman, but there was a black congresswoman who was one of the few people
Barbara
after
Lee.
9/11 to Barbara Lee, opposed to, she was getting called unpatriotic,
Th-
un-American, a terrorist supporter. I mean, she was going through it.
Man, any and everyone who opposed any actions on the war on terror between circa 2001 and like 2007 or so, like that was when it was really at the
Mhm.
hottest. Like they were literally called
Yeah,
traitors on Americans. Like the
right,
president, the like with media, like it wasn't just film media, whatever, but music.
right.
Toby
Mhm.
Keith just died last week, and I had to spend like most of the early and mid 2000s listening to that stupid "We'll put a boot in your ass." And it's like, okay, all right, this like what are we doing here? Like all, and that's actually when country music started making. It started maybe a little bit before that change. Go ahead, you
But
had
it
to
got
say something
really
country music.
patriotic. Yeah, no, yeah, like I was gonna make that point about how that's when country music got like expertly or explicitly patriotic and like pro-American and pro-police and pro, like this surveillance state stuff like that. Because before it was rebellious. Before it was like, fuck the
Yes.
cops, I'm making moonshine.
It,
Yeah, go ahead.
it's so I did a live on TikTok, which you guys should check out, by the way. TikTok power stake, not giving anything you want. But and I was in a live on TikTok the other day, and the live started, and so whenever people are just rolling in, I just start singing, or humming songs. And I was singing that song. I don't know if you know that song by Rehab about I'm sitting at a bar on the inside, waiting for my ride on the outside.
Yeah, I've heard it a couple
Yeah,
times.
so I'm singing that song, and someone's like, "Man, where'd that come from?" And I was like, I don't know. I was just thinking about this field exercise I had in the army. Before we went out into the field, I'm listening to the
Mhm.
crash that piece of shit and then stepped away. I was just it was in my head that entire field exercise. And then I started talking about how that's what music used to be. It used to be
Yeah.
I'm getting drunk, I got a fight with my old lady, you know, I wrecked my car,
Right.
the pigs are
Right.
coming after me. That's what country music was. And now
Yeah.
it's like I love my truck. Cops are cool. You know, if you don't salute the flag, I'll kick your ass. It's like what Hank
Yeah.
Williams Sr. would strangle you to death if he found out you were making this kind of
Yeah.
music. And it is just kind of sad
Yeah.
how much it changed American media.
It got really weird. And to your and the thing is the parallel between 9/11 now and what happened with October 7th is that now, thankfully, a lot of us, especially in my generation, are I don't this is why I don't think the media landscape is gonna be like pro-Israel. Like I think it's gonna be the exact opposite after this situation. Is that now we're seeing through the bullshit. We're seeing through the bullshit. You know what I mean? Access to the internet, and historical context of not only 9/11, but all the other events that happened throughout history of genocides that weren't sort of like stopped when they should have. A lot of us have a lot more access to that context, and we are seeing through the bullshit. All right, go
Hey,
ahead.
folks, hope you
I'm
enjoyed what
ready.
you saw and heard. I'm sure you did. We are professionals after all. But feel free to, you know, like, share, comment, subscribe to your friends, family, enemies. We don't even care. Give it to anyone you can. But we'll toss it over to Ate. Where can we find your stuff, my man?
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. If you would like to see, I mostly specialize in talking about films and TV shows from, a progressive leftist lens, and just from like a highly media literacy analytical perspective. And if you'd like to see more of that, you can find me on TikTok. That's where I post the bulk of my videos. That's where I do the most of my work at Destructo Jugo, Jugo with two U's. And to follow me on YouTube at Destructo Jugo, where I will start posting video essays. And Destructo Jugo on Instagram as well. So thank you for anybody watching. This was great.
Fantastic, fantastic, man. If you guys trust me, and of course you do, you absolutely should trust Ate. He makes some amazing stuff, and I've been following for a long time, and I cannot recommend him enough. Thanks a lot, guys.